Hi there. Welcome back to the show. My name is Ian McNaughton, Big E, as some people like to call me, and this is the Speak Your Piece podcast. We are dropping this episode on Wednesday, July 29th, which means we have 7 weeks until the start of the NFL season. And for those of you who are wondering, is Ian going to be doing content? Is Ian going to have some stuff out? Yes, that is the goal. That is the plan. Um, Basically, in case you don't know, I have done some version, some iteration of a podcast or content off and on for like the last 10 years or so, excuse me. Want to get back into it, want to get back doing it. Um, the biggest issue for me has always just been starting, has just been doing it and getting into it. And hopefully now, this is the time and the place to do it. I'm settled in. I don't know. I'm like 6 months into this apartment that I got now here in Victoria, BC. That's basically where I'm based. That's where I'm located. As you can see, the walls still need a little bit of work. I got that free movie poster for 28 years later when I went to the theater. Then a Ken Griffey Jr. poster. There's some more stuff around the apartment. It's just where I'm situated right now. Walls look kind of bare. So don't mind that. But as I said, there's 7 weeks until the start of the NFL season. Today is Wednesday, July 29th. The NFL season starts on Wednesday, September 9th in Seattle. And that is enough time, I like to think, to preview a season. And how I've done it this year, usually I try and do some version of previewing teams, previewing divisions, yada, yada, yada. Um, This year I'm doing it a little bit different. I'm breaking up my season preview into 7 parts because that's the start of now to the start of the NFL season, of course. And you might be wondering, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense. What are you going to do in your season previews? Basically, I don't want to spoil too much, but for today's episode, we're going to be discussing the biggest changes from 2025, from last season, to 2026. Uh, I have at least five big ones. I have some other smaller ones that I'll discuss a little bit as well. But I wanted to do a different kind of season preview than I usually do. I don't want to say that it's easy to talk about teams and it's easy to do that kind of season preview because it isn't. You do have to do your homework. You do have to, know your stuff. And I think some of that stuff is important. But I wanted to change it up. I wanted to try something new. This is something different. I haven't done this in a while, so I thought let's throw a curveball. Let's try something new. Let's try something different. Hopefully, there's going to be more content throughout the season. Um, Trying to figure out what my schedule is, trying to get it fixed, trying to balance this with work and with like a career outside of this. I love this. This is really fun. I really enjoy doing this. And like I say, the hardest part is just getting started. And it's just getting into that routine and trying to do this on a regular basis. So, with that being said, let's begin. Let's get into it. Who or what are the biggest differences from 2025 to 2026? And I'm going to start with the real obvious one. And I'm probably going to talk about this person and this team a lot between now and the start of the season over the next, again, 7 weeks. So a month and a half. The biggest move this offseason was the Cleveland Browns trading Myles Garrett to the LA Rams. Garrett was coming off a historic season last year. He set the single season high sack record with 23. He's now looking for a championship in LA. He's a two-time Defensive Player of the Year. He won it in 2023 with the Browns. He won it in 2025 with the Browns. The Browns, that was, they were such a terrible team last year. Garrett still had 23 sacks, setting the, single season record, and won Defensive Player of the Year. That's how talented this guy is. Now he is turning 30, I think maybe 31. He has led the league in tackles for the last 2 seasons. Tackles for loss, excuse me. He had 22 tackles for loss in 2024, and he had 33 tackles for loss in 2025. He got 10 more tackles for a loss this past season than he did the season before that. This guy is insane. Now he's going from a team in the Browns who, I mean, they've obviously made the playoffs when he's there. They've even won a playoff game, but the Browns are the Browns. They're not going to be a championship contender. They're not winning the Super Bowl. It was just better to move off while you still could, recoup some assets, and kind of with the Browns, they're kind of like the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're just starting over again. Guys don't want to be there. Guys are moving on, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so they traded him. They traded him for, I believe, two first round picks and Jared Verse, who pretty good defensive end in his own right with the LA Rams. But this is the LA Rams that we're talking about here. These guys lost the NFC Championship last year to Seattle. They have been on the verge of, winning a Super Bowl since they won it in 2022 or 2021 at home against the Bengals. So these guys are phenomenal. These guys are talented. There's no doubt about that. I don't. I think you'd be hard pressed to say otherwise. Put Garrett on this roster, which what the Rams did. They traded for him. He's now going to be an LA Ram for at least 2, if not 3 years. I think he signed a 4-year extension. He already had 2 more years. They tacked on another 2 years, I believe, where he had a 3-year. I think how do I put this? He had 3 years on his deal before he was traded, and then the Rams put another year on his contract. So he's basically a Ram for probably 4 seasons, assuming he's healthy, assuming his play is up to snuff. Yeah, like this guy's legit. This guy's a stud, and he's again coming off the single season sack record, and then going to one of the best teams in the NFL with with an already legitimate defense, going to make that even better. So it's a case of, in a way, the rich getting richer, with the Rams adding another stud. It's a case of the Browns starting over again. Like they'll never get another Myles Garrett, which is partially, I think, why you had to trade him, because you had to get something back. And the Browns have a lot of questions themselves. Like they're still trying to figure out a quarterback. I don't think they really love their head coach, Todd Monken, who was the Baltimore Ravens OC. Like Monken was not their first choice this year, so I don't. I think that's what we reported. He was not the first option for Cleveland this year, so I don't know that they are entirely, um, you know, with him. That he maybe will have a shorter leash than some new coaches. But this is a huge deal in terms of not only on the field, the Rams are sensational, legitimate. Good luck to any tackles or any guards, even really, because the Rams could bump Garrett inside whenever they felt like, even though Garrett's been mostly an outside pass rusher. Good luck to anybody trying to defend him, because that's not an easy guy to defend. So I think it's pretty clear the number one pick for the biggest change from last season to this season is Myles Garrett. And I will say, there's also something to be said for LA. I think they've done pretty well. I haven't been to LA, so I haven't seen it for myself. But I feel like the Rams, at least, have done a really good job of connecting and getting the people of LA to root for them. LA is a really weird city, especially a sports city. Like most people there are Lakers fans, most people there are Dodgers fans. Um, like there's some people who are kind of interested in hockey. Yeah, there's a big soccer scene there, obviously, right now. We're coming off the World Cup, which was huge. Football for the longest time in LA was dominated by USC, and I think there's still USC people there who, you know, will go to Trojan games, and I don't think it's as big as it was, let's say, almost 20 years ago with like the Reggie Bush and all that sort of stuff. But there has never really been an overwhelming, dominant, like number one football team in LA in a long time. Like I'm sure some people would say that the Raiders still have that pull in LA when the Raiders used to play there, but like the Rams are kind of cementing themselves as top dog for football in LA. They got a number of the best players in the league. They have one of the best head coaches in the league. Um, they have one of the nicest facilities in the league, one of the nice stadiums. So, like, I think there's a lot there that the people of LA can jump on, can you know get on board with. Um, that I think makes a ton of sense for LA and the people there. And it also makes sense for the Rams to go get another guy, go get another dude. As I said, on the field, obviously makes a ton of sense. Garrett's a world class player. That only makes them better. But also, it's the intrigue of, hey, the really good team that won 13 or 14 games last year just added one of, if not the best defenders in the league. And, they're now going to try and go for it again this year. They're trying to one up, the Seattles, the San Frans, um, whoever you want to say. So I think that really makes things interesting and will make the Rams an even bigger story than they already were. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how competitive the Rams are this season. We'll see if the offense can do as well as they did last year. The defense should be up, but is the offense going to fall a little bit after have a little regression after last year? Who knows? We'll see. So the second biggest difference this year compared to last season, I find I kind of put two guys here in the same answer because they are very similar, and that's AJ Brown going to New England and Jalen Waddle going to Denver. Now they're similar, but they're different. We kind of knew AJ Brown was going to be a Patriot. Everybody had been talking about it for a long time. It was brought up, I think, at the draft, but it wasn't actually official until like a few months later. The Jalen Waddle thing kind of we thought made sense that they would move on from him. We didn't realize it was going to be to the Broncos. Um, the Dolphins got a few pieces back for him, but this is a very similar situation for both teams, where they both were contenders last year for the Super Bowl. New England obviously beat Denver in the AFC Championship game last year, but it's teams who didn't win the Super Bowl go make splashy additions to get, offensive weapons deals. And, you see this all the time of teams who think they're like good to great, but they need to be exceptional on offense. And it really makes sense for each team to do so. The Patriots got rid of Stephon Diggs, who I think was arguably one of their best, if not one of, if not the best receiver on the team last year. Um, and I mean, in the Super Bowl, nobody had any impact for the Patriots. They were never there was never really a hope. But that was just how good Seattle's defense was, not necessarily how bad New England's offense was. But for Denver, this is a team that feels very complete. This is a team, they have a quarterback they think can get them to the Super Bowl. They have two guys that he can throw to in Sutton and Jalen Waddle, who complement each other really well. Waddle going to be more the speed guy. I think Sutton's going to be more the possession guy. So I think that can put both of those teams in an even better spot to go win it all next season, and it makes the lives of Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore that much more difficult. Those are the three teams who we've all assumed have kind of been controlling the AFC for the last 3 seasons, And now New England and Denver came in last year. They played in the championship game. They're going to try and get back there again, but we'll see if again Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore allows it to happen. It's it's going to be fascinating to watch. It's a huge change. It's a big difference. I think if I'm honest, I prefer Denver trading for Waddle than I do New England trading for Brown. And I think it's because I trust Denver's offensive guys more than I trust New England's offensive guys. If that makes it like I trust the coaching staff more of Denver than New England to get the most out of their guy. I especially curious in that with AJ Brown last year with the Eagles, there felt like quite a bit of prima donna energy coming out. A little bit of a diva energy coming out with AJ Brown. And I don't know AJ Brown. I don't know his personality. I don't watch videos of it. Like I don't know how he is as a person and if that's just who he is or if that's what last season with the Eagles brought out. So considering that the Patriots had a very I'll say it intriguing offseason, losing the Super Bowl, their coach in a weird scandal with Diana Rossini at the Athletic. Um, it was just a weird offseason for New England, and I do have to wonder that if things don't go well, especially at the beginning of the season, you know, is everything right in Foxborough? Is everything going to be okay in New England? I don't know. That's kind of where I trust Denver to be a little bit more stable, and their offensive coaching staff to maximize Waddle's efficiency and his usage. Um, in that I don't I think there's less of an opportunity in Denver for there to be drama and egos getting in the way than possibly in New England. That's I guess what I'm trying to say there. But we'll see. Who knows? Like you could tell me that New England goes back to the Super Bowl again, and AJ Brown has a 1,000 yard season and catches a bunch of touchdowns. That totally makes sense. I could totally see that. I could also see that with Waddle. Like I could see him having a crazy good year in Denver, and that would make sense as well. So it's the reason why it's the second biggest change from from last season to this season on my list. Third, I kind of zagged a little bit. The third biggest difference from 2025 to 2026 for me personally is Clint Kubiak going to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, if you don't know, Clint Kubiak was the OC, was the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks last year. He left after the Super Bowl to go take on the Raiders job. The Raiders fired Pete Carroll. He was a one and done. It was a weird, bad, not very good season last year in Vegas. And Vegas is kind of hoping now that they have their guy. You know, they got new quarterback, first overall pick, Fernando Mendoza. They're kind of hoping that everything becomes a little bit more professional, a little bit more grown up, a little bit more mature. That's what I think the Raiders are hoping for and the Raiders are looking for. I don't think they think they're going to be competitive this season. The roster certainly does not appear that way. They don't have any receivers. They have nobody for Mendoza or projected starter Kirk Cousins to throw the ball to. Not a chance. Um, that being said, I don't think it's about this year for this team. I think this is about trying to build something that you really couldn't do with Pete Carroll because he's getting old, and you really couldn't do with Geno Smith because he's getting old. Like in terms of trying to build something and in terms of trying to create a sustainable long term NFL winner, it wasn't going to happen with that pair. I think those guys had already kind of past their shelf life, maybe they're past their best before date, uh, coaching and playing. Now Gino's on the Jets, so who knows what that's going to look like. But I think at least it's a good system for Fernando Mendoza to learn from. I think that he has a guy in Kirk Cousins who again, he's maybe not the most elite quarterback, but he's at least a solid player that he can learn from and he can understand different techniques from. He can understand what it takes to be a quarterback, the commitment, all that sort of stuff, especially for somebody like Cousins who's done it on multiple teams. Um, I'm also intrigued to see if Kubiak is the guy who can coach up his teams. Like right now, if I'm being honest, this team looks like it's probably like a 4 or 5 win team. Like there are some guys that I like. I do like Ashton Genty. I do like Brock Bowers. There are guys on this team that I think are uh, competitive and playable and all that sort of stuff. But can Kubiak go in there and with his scheme and with his play calling, can he make this a 6 or 7 win team? Can he bring 2 wins to the Raiders that they wouldn't otherwise have? That's what I'm curious to see. That's what I'm interested in. We'll see if that happens. I have no idea. Should be fascinating to watch. Should be intriguing to watch. On the flip side, I'm curious to see how the Seahawks do without their offensive coordinator. Or at least their offensive coordinator from last season. If you go back and you watch some of those Seahawks games from last year, like Sam Darnold put on some clinics, man. And I know he struggled like early in games, first half, had some bad picks, had some bad turnovers, but you know, he threw a lot of guys open. He threw JSN open quite a bit. Barner was open quite a bit, and as much as it is a guy beating a guy, like as much as it is just 1v1, can I outwork you? Can I outman you? It does also require good play calling and good scheming that Kubiak had that he's now taken with him to Vegas. I don't know how Brian Fleury, who's the new Seahawks offensive coordinator, formerly the 49ers tight ends coach, I don't know what his style is. I don't know what his scheme is. I don't know what his fits are going to look like. Um, he's coming as well from the Shanahan offense, which is where Kubiak came from. So presumably there's similar ties there. But yeah, like I think that's an underrated talking point this for this upcoming season is there's no Clint Kubiak for the Seahawks, and he did such a tremendous job planning and scheming and building that offense that I'm not saying that Brian Fleury can't do it. I need to see it to believe it. I'm sure it's entirely possible he can, but who knows? You just don't know, and you just it's another offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. They seems like they go through one every 2 years. Like it's building something new. It's another offensive coordinator for Sam Darnold, who's gone through I don't know how many in his time in the NFL. It's just something to watch and something I'm curious in on how it goes between now training camp started. We'll see how it goes in week 1 against New England. Should be a good game. The rematch of the Super Bowl. Very curious to see as well for the Raiders if the Raiders can I think they're a 4 or 5 win team right now. Can Kubiak coach up 2 wins, maybe 3 if they're lucky this season? So that is the third biggest difference from 2025 to 2026. The fourth one is a fascinating one. It's an interesting one. It's a part of a bigger issue or bigger problem, if you want to call it that, with the NFL, and that's more international games and weird scheduling. So this year there are a record 9 international games that will be taking place in the NFL this season. That includes week 1. The Rams are playing the 49ers in Melbourne. Neither team has a bye after that. Week 3, the Ravens are playing the Cowboys in Rio de Janeiro. No team has a bye after that. Week 4, the Colts are playing the Commanders in London. Nobody has a bye after that. Week 5, the Eagles are playing the Jags in London. Nobody has a bye after that. Week 6, the Texans are playing the Jags in London. Nobody has a bye after that. Week 7, the Steelers are playing the Saints in Paris. The Saints have a bye after that. Week 9, the Bengals are playing the Falcons in Madrid. No one has a bye after that. And week 10, the Patriots are playing the Lions in Munich, and the Patriots have a bye after that. That concludes the NFL in Europe. And then in week 11, the Vikings are playing the 49ers in Mexico City. No team has a bye after that. So the 49ers themselves, and I'm not saying I feel bad for the 49ers. I'm a Seahawks fan, just putting it out there. I'm a bit biased, you could say. Um, the 49ers have two international home games this year. They're playing in Melbourne, which is a very weird one because it actually will take place at 10:35 a.m. on a Friday morning because it's supposed to be the Thursday night football game on Thursday, September 10th here in North America. So it's taking place Friday morning in Melbourne. The Niners, I'm sure, are pissed. They're not happy. They're getting bought out of two home games. The Cowboys and Ravens will feel like a bit of a prime time game because it's taking place at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon here, like Pacific time. It's going to start like 8 p.m. in Rio. Um, and again, the Vikings and the 49ers are going to be on Sunday Night Football. So it's a weird, like, I don't know. I don't know what the I think it's 2 hours difference Mexico City time zone is. So it's actually more beneficial in that regard for the Vikings. If it's in a central time zone, it's actually more beneficial for the Vikings because the 49ers are actually having to travel, play two time zones ahead instead of having the advantage of central teams coming to play in the Pacific, which I got to double check. I feel like that statistically has been an advantage for like the last 10 years. And then we also get two Wednesday games this year. We have the Patriots at Seattle on Wednesday, September 9th. That's the opening game. That game typically would be played on the Thursday, but because the 49ers are playing the Rams Friday in Melbourne to be Thursday night football here for North America, the Seahawks and Patriots are now playing on Wednesday. And then we have a American Thanksgiving Eve game between the Packers and the Rams at SoFi on Wednesday, November 25th. Like, there's so much weird scheduling. There's so much like travel and recovery times are like, it used to be when you went played a game in England or played a game overseas, you got a bye week. Now nobody gets a bye week outside of the Saints or the Patriots. Of the, 8 teams that are playing overseas, two of them are getting a bye week after their game. Like, it's very concerning from both a player safety standpoint and trying to find out where your team is playing, when they're playing, and where I can watch it. I didn't even mark down the different networks that these games are on, but off the top of my head, Sunday Night Football Vikings 49ers, that's going to be on NBC. The Rams and 49ers, I think, is a Netflix game. I think Ravens Cowboys is CBS, and any one of those European games in Europe are going to be on the NFL Network or Peacock or whatever. So like that's the part as well for a fan of like, okay, I know my team's going overseas. I know the games are going to start earlier. I don't always know what networks are on. Like, I'm surprised anybody is able to figure it out because it can be confusing and it used to be simple of, hey, at CBS at 1 o'clock, your team's playing. Great, cool, awesome. Now it's like, hey, you gotta get Peacock, you gotta get Netflix, you gotta get this streaming service. It's gotta be on Prime. It's gonna be on that. It's just it's more complicated than it needs to be, and it's gotta be frustrating for fans of teams who are like the Jags who have two games of this. Um, or the 49ers who lose out two home games. Yeah, it's shitty. It's unfortunately just how the world works now. It unfortunately just seems to be how the NFL operates in that everything is a cash grab, everything for money, and it just leaves the fans out of it. It's unfortunate, and I wish we didn't live in this world. I wish we could actually have normal, regular scheduling. And I will say, it is cool that they get to go play a game in Paris. It's cool they get to go play a game in Madrid or Munich or wherever. They're playing in Melbourne. Awesome. Great. Like, not saying that I don't like that part. I guess what I'm saying is that I would like to have a bit more reasoning or a bit more just I wish it wasn't so complex. I wish it was thought a bit more with the fans in North America and the players in mind. And it's particularly with the players who are traveling overseas, who who don't have a week to adjust to this, who are trying to get their bodies in game shape, trying to recover to play a fucking football game while doing it in a different country, and then having to come back once they played that game. They come back and they have to recover from going to Europe. They have to recover from playing a football game and then have to play a football game like that. Like it doesn't always make sense. It doesn't always seem logical, and that's where I think you lose out on your fans here. Now, great, you go make fans in Munich, you go make fans in Mexico City. That's awesome. Those are cool places. It's great that football's growing and there are more fans, but at what cost? I guess is my question. So there's gonna be some weird games, some weird scheduling. I didn't even discuss like late in the season when we get to week 17 and 18, and we have the some games that are flexed into Saturdays, some games that are flexed into Sundays, some games that are whatever. So be prepared. Your team might get a weird flex or get a weird schedule change, and you just got to roll with it. So that goes for both the players who actually play the games and are actually traveling. That goes to teams, like the people who are planning this, the people who have to actually do the logistics for moving equipment, for moving players, for organizing hotels, food, rush, like all that sort of stuff. And it goes for the fans who are used to seeing their team play at a certain time, certain game every week, and now it's yeah. So that is the fourth biggest change from 2025 to 2026. And then rounding out my top five is the new offensive coordinator in Los Angeles for the Chargers. Excuse me. His name is Mike McDaniel. You might know him because he used to be the Miami Dolphins head coach, and he's kind of a nerd boy, and he's got glasses, and he's friends with Dan Soder, excuse me, all that jazz. That guy is going to be calling plays, scheming stuff up for Justin Herbert and company. And it's a huge opportunity for the Chargers offense. They can actually be exciting and worth watching and threatening, which were none of those words I would use to describe the Chargers offense by the end of last season when they were getting kicked in the butt by the New England Patriots. I hope that McDaniel can get more out of the players than some of the other guys who have been the offensive coordinator, and they kind of need to because I don't think they have great receivers. There's Lad McConkey, and I think Quentin Johnston's still on the team, but their receiving group is not that great. They got a couple decent tight ends. Mario and Hampton is pretty good at running back. Like they have some guys. It's just this is kind of a similar situation to Kubiak of can you get more out of your players than can you get more than the sum of your parts at some of the parts out of your players? Does that make sense? Kind of, I guess, maybe. You know, the goal really is for the Chargers. Can they get Justin Herbert back on MVP playing ground? Like, can he be like Mahomes was, or like Josh Allen is, or like Lamar? Joe Burrow when he's held. Like, can Herbert get there? Because I feel like since Harbaugh's taking over, he's missed out on that a bit. Like they had Greg Roman as the OC, and they were going to do this power run thing and some play action, and like I think that works to a point. But then you get down in a game, and then you have to throw the ball more, and it doesn't always work out. It doesn't always blend together well. And I think McDaniel can do a whole bunch of different things. He has a whole bunch of different knives in his Swiss Army knife. You know what I mean? Like he's got a whole can do a whole bunch of different things. He can do a lot for the Chargers to make them exciting, to make them interesting, to make them worthy of being a Super Bowl contender even. Like I think that maybe it's a bit of a stretch because I don't know how well the rest of their defense is playing, but purely from an offensive side of the ball, this guy has the talent to do it. This guy has the coaching. This guy has the scheme. He gets to play in a dome half the year. Like I think there is an opportunity to really do some damage and really be threatening on offense if it goes well for McDaniel and the Chargers. We'll see though. We'll see. I'm not holding my breath. Um, it's year whatever of the Justin Herbert experience. We think this guy has got another, has got a lot to give, has a lot to show, and he doesn't always do it sometimes. And I don't know how much of it is him and how much of it is the guy that the guys that he's with. I don't know how much of it is his staff. But this is a year, this is the opportunity for Justin Herbert to take that next step, to be the guy, to get up with the again Josh Allen's, Mahomes, the Lamar Jacksons, Burrow when he's healthy, all those guys to be the guy, to be that stud. He can do that. We'll see if it happens this year with McDonald and Herbert. That was basically my five top five that I have biggest changes from 2025 to 2026. There's some smaller things, not maybe not small, but like other notable changes. Trent McDuffie, former Chiefs coordinator, cornerback, he is in LA now with the Rams. He was a big splash for the Rams this season or this offseason, uh, as well as Myles Garrett, who I talked about earlier. Uh, in Buffalo, there's no Sean McDermott. The Bills actually kind of have two big things, really big difference from last year to this year. No Sean McDermott, he's out as head coach. They went with Joe Brady. He promoted him from offensive coordinator to head coach. So the offense maybe is going to look more or less the same. Um, give Allen a little bit more freedom, or give him some more judgment and play call. I don't know. They're gonna let Allen, I guess, have more decision making. And without McDermott, I'm curious to see what the defense looks like for Buffalo because McDermott was a defensive guy. He was the defensive coordinator in Carolina for a long time. Um, I'm also curious to see how DJ Moore works in Buffalo. The Bills traded for him from Chicago. They gave up a second round pick to do so. Um, DJ Moore is maybe the best receiver that Josh Allen has had in his time in the NFL, which is saying something. Because Josh Allen's been around for a while now. I, I'm curious to see if that, oh, elevates the Bills even more. Um, by the end of last year, that team was running on fumes. I don't even know how they got that far. They really should have beat the Broncos in the playoff game, and they didn't because Allen made too many mistakes. But you know, it might just be how the Bills franchise is always a bridesmaid, never a bride, and maybe this is the year it changes. They're in the new stadium, new offensive weapon, new head coach. Maybe it changes for them. Who knows? I'm also curious to see the Falcons try and be a serious team. That feels like a big difference from last year to this year. They have Kevin Stefanski as their head coach, who I like. I'm intrigued to see how he does. Um, they have Ian Cunningham at GM. He formerly the assistant GM in Chicago with the Bears. They have Matt Ryan as the new president of football operations. Like I don't know, the Falcons I think do this every once in a while where they make a big change and they gotta go find a guy. And I mean I don't know that I love them this season, considering that their quarterback room is like Michael Penix and Tua Tagovailoa. So like not exactly world beaters at quarterback. But I mean, they have Bijan, they have Drake London. I still like Kyle Pitts. I think the defense is all right. It's okay. Um, but I think the Falcons think they can try and be a serious team. Maybe it starts this year. I think no offense to Raheem Morris, I think he is a solid coach, but maybe Stefanski, who's had luck, you know, with Cleveland, they've won playoff games in Cleveland. Um, maybe Stefanski can get it done in Atlanta. Who knows? I'm curious to see how that all goes for them because those are some big changes inside the football operations for Atlanta. So maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Who knows? And kind of the same thing with the New York Giants. Like they have a new head coach. His name's John Harbaugh, brother to Jim. but the rest of their offensive coaching staff is just full of dudes, and I mean that derogatory, like not great. I should put it. I should have wrote down some of the names, but I'll maybe do that next week's preview. But the Giants, like I don't know. I think they're trying to be similar to the Falcons, that they need to be a grown up team. They need to be a bit more mature. And I don't know if you can do that with Jackson Dart and Cam Scattaboo at quarterback and running back, but who knows? And then speaking of the Giants, they traded Dexter Lawrence to the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Bengals defense maybe is going to be better this year. I think they brought in guys. So the Bengals had one of the worst defenses last year. I think it's at least better on paper than it was last year. Last year they didn't really have anybody. They let Trey Hendrickson go. He's now a Baltimore Raven. But this year they brought in Dexter Lawrence. They brought in Boye Mafe from the Seahawks. They brought in Jonathan Allen, who was with the Vikings. He'd previously been with the Commanders. Like those are some guys who maybe are not at their peak right now or are coming off, lower-ish seasons than they put up before, but those are at least names that have had success playing defense in the NFL, which is kind of what the Bengals need. Um, I'm curious to see how well their defense is. Can Joe Burrow stay healthy? Can they be a bit more of a complete team? We shall see. I think, but the Bengals having a solid, or not even solid, I'll say average defense is a big difference from last year, considering how bad their defense was last year. And finally, I'm going to say this is maybe a bit of a deep cut. Jeff Stoutland is no longer the offensive line coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. He'd been doing it since like I think almost since Andy Reid was still with the Eagles. Like he was a part of like when Jason Kelsey got there. He's been a part of the staff since Lane Johnson got there. Jeff Stoutland's been around for a while with the Eagles, but no longer there. No longer the offensive line coach. I think that's huge both for locker room buys, but also just a guy that's done a really bang up job building that offensive line no longer there. Now, granted, the Eagles still have studs on offensive line. Like it's not like those guys are going away. They still have again Landon Dickerson, Lane Johnson, Jordan Maeda, all those guys. Like they have a bunch of dudes. It's not like that's changed. Cam Jurgens, like those guys are still there, but they had top guys with a top coach, and when you don't have that top coach, how is that going to react, and especially work in relation with the rest of the team, with the quarterback, with the play calling, all that sort of stuff. So curious to see how the Eagles' offensive line does without their longtime offensive line coach. So there you go. That's part one of our NFL season preview for 2026. That was the biggest changes from 2025 to 2026. We'll be back again next week. You again can watch us on YouTube. Uh, uh, Check us out on our YouTube channel. You can listen to us on Spotify. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram at SYP Pod. You can check out our Patreon. I'll have all the links for that in the description. Again, my name is Ian McNaughton. I'll be back again next week, next Wednesday, for part two of my 2026 NFL season preview. Thank you very much for listening. Appreciate all your support. Can't wait to talk with you again soon. Please tell your friends, and we will see you next Wednesday, if not sooner. Peace out.